Assalamu alaikum, dear students. I hope I'm audible to all of you. I can only see Mavya and Sasri. Today, am I audible to you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. We'll wait for your classmates to join in for another 1 or 2 minutes. Once they have joined in, we can continue. Meanwhile, when you're in the classroom, please make sure that you're mute on all times, until and unless you want to answer something. You can raise your hand and then you can answer, right? Okay, there are two more students. They have joined. The reason that I'm using Teams because it allows me to record it without any problems. So it helps the students who might not be able to join in for various reasons. So yesterday, I believe we were on the second, or maybe we started the third stanza. Let me attach the poem over here so that we can contemplate and, you know, revisit some of the important points that were there. लेकिन हम इसको ऑफिशियली इस पे डिस्कशन बेटे 5 से 10 मिनट बाद ही करेंगे so that your classmates can join in. I can give you a quick review of what we have discussed yesterday. Meanwhile, they join in. Okay, so this was the odd that ode that we were discussing about. Okay, people are still joining. चलिए थोड़ा वेट ही कर लेते हैं. So yesterday we were talking about Ode on a Grecian Urn that was written in 1820. As you can see, thou still unravished bride of quietness, thou foster child of silence and slow time, Sylvan historian who cannot thus express. So these three metaphors, unravished bride of quietness, foster child of silence and slow time, and Sylvan historian, all these three metaphors are used for the urn itself, and it cannot express the subjugation, violence, silence, and slow time it has endured for the past years that they have mentioned over here. A flowery tale more sweetly than our rhyme, what leaf fringent legend haunts about thy shape of deities of mortals or of both. So, according to the John Keats and the interpretation of these lines, what they are trying to make us understand over here is that they are not sure whether it is about, uh, you know, uh, 1 second, that it is about the mortals or both, or maybe separately they are talking about that. Other than that, they have mentioned gods over here who come from the Tempe of Tales and they observe the people in Arcady. What men or gods are thee? What these? What maidens loath? What mad pursuit? What struggle to escape? What pipes and timbrels? What wild ecstasy? So all these words, the repetition of the word, what represents the importance, what the author wants us to understand over here, that they are not sure, he's not sure that these people are the gods or the mortals and what is exactly happening. And I want to show you the urn. I found this reading. Now look at this. This is the urn that they are talking about. There are three sides to the urn. तो तीनों साइड्स पे एक पिक्चर बनी हुई है. ये देखें, एक पर आपको ये नजर आ सकता है कि सॉन्ग्स बजाते हुए दे आर मूविंग टुवर्ड्स समथिंग, और बहुत ही एक वो हिंदी में कहते हैं ना आदिवासी का काइंड ऑफ पीपल आर बीइंग डिपिक्टेड ओवर हियर, जंगल पीपल फॉर दैट मैटर. और ये Timberlanes, pipes are there, they are dancing, there is a woman, ठीक है. अब ये depictions authenticated हैं या नहीं, you can check, but this reading was downloaded from a good website, a university website, तो आप इसे देख सकते हैं। उसके बाद एक सीन ये बना हुआ है। अब देखें ये अर्न की शेप देखें। शायद आपके माइंड में अर्न की शेप्स डिफरेंट हो, लेकिन आप डिफरेंट शेप्स यहाँ देख सकते हैं। वन इज दिस वन, देन वी हैव दिस वन। ये प्याले की तरह लग रहा है, जग की तरह लग रहा है। और उसके बाद this one. So freestyle urns, they were made this way. So the first stanza, all in all, talks about, and it is the opening ground for the rest of the discussion that we are going to do in the poem, where it talks about the urn itself, how it is represented by three metaphors, and then there are certain questions that whatever is depicted on the urn, what does it entail? Whether these are mortals or humans, they cannot be both. And what kind of music, what kind of ecstasy, what kind of mad pursuit is being depicted on it. The second stanza, on the other hand, focuses on the melodies, the musical quality of the urn. When I say musical quality of the urn, I mean to say the quality that talks about, that is depicted on the entire अर्न। देखिए यहाँ पर जो अर्न पे ये लोग बने हुए हैं, ये म्यूजिकल इंस्ट्रूमेंट्स उनके हाथ में है। एक के हाथ में पाइप है और एक के हाथ में तंबरले है। Now we cannot hear the melodies that they are playing, but our imagination, of course, Keats is saying that he does have poetic imagination and poetic license to imagine howsoever he wants to, and he's doing the same over here, where he says, "Heard melodies are sweet, but unheard are sweeter. Therefore, ye soft pipes play on, not to the sensual air, but more endeared." So here he simply says he's simply experiencing that he can hear the music and he wants these people on the urn to play on the music, and he will be listening to it because he has the sensual ear, he has the understanding and clarity of it. Okay? Pipe to the spirit ditties of no tone. So there's no tone to it. It is just in the mind of the poet and the person who's experiencing it, the poetic persona that can identify these things. Fair youth beneath the trees, thou cannot leave thy song, nor even can those trees be bare. So those trees that are being depicted in the urn, on the urn, will never be shedding their leaves. They are never going to go away. They are not going to move forward. They are frozen in time. Thy song, nor ever can thou trees be bare, bold lover, never, never can thou kiss. So that kiss that those two lovers they want to complete will never be completed. They will never be able to consummate. They will never to they are never destined to move forward. Thou winning near the goal, yet do not grieve. She cannot fade. Thou hast not thy bliss. Forever will thou love, and she be fair. She will stay the way she is. She will never grow old. She will never feel the grief. You will never feel the grief. This you is the beloved that is being depicted. So all in all, in this stanza, the poet is depicting that everything that you can imagine in your mind is more sweeter, more dense as compared to what you can actually experience. So it is highly influenced by his Greek and Latin understanding and readings that John Keats has done. I'll read some information from the Yale study for you. I know you did read it yesterday as well, but to just, remind you of what we were discussing. By the sistad of the second stanza, the ode's treatment of time, the tension between perishable and eternal, men or gods, the static and the dynamic, the stillness of urn, and the struggle pursuit has resolved itself into three symbols: the trees, which represent nature, thy song, which represents art, and the bold lover, who represents the most basic process of human existence, that is fertility. Of course, when a writer is writing, the poet is writing a poetry, he is committing, you know, we can say an act of fertility. अब अगर मेरे पास knowledge है, I have a knowledge of certain things and I want to produce something, I will be committing an act of fertility. अब fertility का मतलब सिर्फ बच्चे पैदा करना नहीं है. It is more than that. It is more than that for the poets and creative artists and writers. So when he represents these two lovers, it also represents the cycle of life and death, the cycle of progress, the cycle of how life is definitely something that is transient in nature. Yani, it has to go on, it has to move forward. It is not going to stop anywhere, it is not going to wait for anyone. As you know, that time waits for none, and everything is healed or progressed with the help of time, with the passage of time. And that is what poet and the poem over here is trying to definitely entail over here. Um, in life, time takes its toll in each of these areas, such as beauty, art, and fertility. Nature changes going through its seasonal cycles of death and regeneration. जैसे कि Ode to the West Wind में भी हमारे पास this symbol was there, this imagery was there that the regeneration time has to come. Art stems from both nature and the experience of life, but it does so in a way that, while more lasting, is actually neither, which means that even the art itself is perishable with the passage of time. The narratives attached to it will perish or fade or be manipulated in one way or another. Finally, life in all its splendor is dedicated by or dictated by time. Like I've told you that theme of time is prevalent over here, और time में बहुत power है. It is chronological, and its moments such as those of love and desire are transient. Transient का मतलब है it is ever changing, mutable, and therefore less perfect than either art or truth. On the other, however, time is stilled. The melodist cannot leave thy song. यानी जो ट्रिम्बल एंड पाइप्स बजा रहा है, जो आर्टिस्ट है, जो मेलोडिस्ट है, he is also time bound. He's also bound with the depiction of what he's doing. He is also frozen in time on the earth. So he's not going to see any progress. For example, when an artist who is a melodist वो ये instruments बजाना शुरू करता है तो बहुत basic बजाएगा. With the passage of time, they will improve, they will get some mastery over their art. But this is not going to happen for these melodists because they are frozen in time. The trees can never be bare, the lovers are fated to remain eternally as they are depicted midway in the process of the chase. Yani, their chase for each other, their love for each other is never going to be completed in such a manner which is required. Wild ecstasy, filled with wild ecstasy, but never able to consummate their desire. But again, there is a paradox. Though the lovers are captured forever in a moment of supreme beauty, the moment before they are apt to be disappointed, they are also abstracted from the process of life. While life depends on fertility, the lovers are in fact infertile. Why are they infertile? Because they are never going to come close to each other. They are never going to come to an end. उनका जो एक love chase है, वो जो एक period of wooing each other है, it's never going to see the ending of it. Now, who decides कि love chase का ending क्या है? Is it getting together? Is it getting married? Is it consummating the union? Is it getting or is it growing all together? That is open to interpretation. But here we can see it is definitely depicted that it's not going to be fulfilled by this. Okay, but if there is somebody who's trying to join in with the name of poetry, tell them to use their name. Poetry is not your name, you cannot use it. ठीक है, पोइट्री नहीं, अपना नाम लिखकर ज्वाइन कीजिए प्लीज. Anyway, so the point that we were talking about is that the lovers are infertile. Through apostrophe or the direct addressing of the inanimate bold lover, the speaker hints at the paradox. Do not grieve, he says. Yet, the lover, because abstract and not alive, is as incapable of grief as is of ever winning near goal. अब ये जो सारे words आपको inverted commas में नजर आ रहे हैं, they're talking about the same point, that he's never going to get to even near to his goal, that goal of getting his beloved, because he's also frozen in time. Grief, is the negative side of life's process, the painful result of love. Only living, fertile livers can feel the weariness, fever, and the fret brought on by time. And while the speaker tries to imagine that the timeless world of the urn is the perfection of life, his observations suggest it is in fact the opposite of life, that his attempt must be ending in doom in some way. And of course, if you do not move forward from these points, you will be stuck in time. And if you're stuck in time, you're not going to see the next points. And if you do not see the next points in your life, you do not get the holistic or generic meaning of life. So you're stuck somewhere. Therefore, the first two stanza they highlight about or they highlight the importance of the permanence of art, how there are binaries of comparison between two, such as life versus death, regeneration, stagnation versus observation made by the poet that the life must go on, and much more. Look at the third stanza. A happy, happy boughs that cannot shed your leaves nor ever bid the spring audio, and happy melodist unwearied forever piping songs forever anew. Here he's saying, now you'll see the repetition of the word happy, happy, happy. If you remember, in the first stanza, the poet repeats the word, the question word what multiple times. So those questions are being answered one by one in each of these stanzas. A happy, happy boughs that cannot shed your leaves nor ever bid the spring audio, which means the spring season that is being depicted on the urn will never see the light of spring because the leaves are never going to shed. And the person, the melodist who's playing the pipes, who's playing the music, will never say bye to this particular scenario because he's stuck in the scenario. And his melodies, they are going to be unvaried, they are going to be on the same level, they are going to be repetitive, they are going to be stuck there. More happy love, more happy, happy love, forever warm and still to be enjoyed. So the love affair, the love instance that has been depicted, that has been engraved on the urn, will stay the same. It will stay new. It will stay happy. It will be enjoyed forever in the moment. You know for a fact कि जब love हो जाता है तो उसके next steps में fluctuations आती हैं. You do have a sense of happiness, grief, weariness. You get annoyed with your loved ones. You get annoyed with what people have to say. जैसे हस्बैंड वाइफ में बहुत कॉमन है कि वेरिएशंस होंगे, ना तो वो हमेशा खुश हो सकते हैं, ना तो वो हमेशा दुखी हो सकते हैं, ना वो हमेशा लड़ सकते हैं. So those weariness, those variations of feelings will never be enjoyed by these lovers because they are stuck in time. Forever panting and forever young. They are going to stay young. They're never going to get old. All breathing human passions far above that leaves a heart high, sorrowful, and cloyed, a burning forehead, and a parching tongue. So again, it is directly connected to the second stanza where those three symbols that we have discussed have been depicted, the trees, the beauty, and the urn itself. Now, the second stanza establishes the three central symbols of the poem. There is yet no order to them. They exist together. They are coexisting. They are eco-critically connected to each other. They exist together in the same type of wild ecstasy as the lovers chase. In the third stanza, however, the speaker clearly delineates a hierarchy among nature, art, and life. These three words are important. This is what you have to remember. This order is expressed in the first three couplets of the stanza, which addressing one of the three symbols. First is the nature, where it says, if it is happy, then art must also be happy, since art reflects nature. Now, the poet, the text is going to reflect how these processes of happiness, nature, art, and much more, they are connected to each other. First is nature. If it is happy, then art must also be happy, since art reflects nature. If art is happy, then life is happy. As you know, art is usually the reflection of life itself, since art also expresses experiences. But what is meant by happy? Some readers might think the repetition of the word to be excessive, a sign that speaker is trying too hard to believe in what he is saying. But we must turn to Ode to Nightingale. Now, there is a comparison, a representation of another poem which is very famous by John Keats, which similarly addresses the tension between time and experience. To understand the way in which Keats uses the word in the poem, the speaker's heart pains for the nightingale's happiness. Nightingale is a song that is sung by a bird. It is very sad. It is a longer song and it has variation of um, feelings in it, which is expressed in its songs. The bird's happiness is not of the humanity, however, it is the happiness that comes from lacking the ability to think. Just remember that in this reading, there is a comparison. If you can understand, well and good. If you cannot, you can definitely skip it. Moving forward, um, Ode on a Grecian urn. Like the nightingale, the urn abstract beings, their natural world and their artistic expression exist outside of time and are therefore immortal. The speaker comes closest to identify with their happiness in the third stanza. Thus, his repetition of the word is highlighted over here that people are happy if they can see the beauty and the nature in the beauty and how their feelings are attached to the beauty and nature itself that is depicted on the urn. Yet the identification of these things are fleeting in nature. They're always there, but they are not moving forward. As in Ode to the Nightingale, the experience overtakes him. He realizes he's detached from the urn's world he longs to be a part of, and Poem Stone shifts from ecstasy to alienation. The theme of alienation, just like Wordsworth, is very much prevalent over here. The poet was once reading all of these things and he wanted to be part of it, but then all of a sudden this feeling struck him that he cannot be part of it because it exists out of the ideas that he has mentioned over here. Thus, the lover's passion exists far above in the world of ideas rather than the life itself. The speaker's heart aches or pains as it does in the presence of the nightingale. It is highly sorrowful and cloyed. His physical presence, the reminder or it is the reminder that he is not abstracted but real. Enters the poem for the first time, a burning forehead and a parching tongue. The first two stanza does not entail with clarity that the poet is part of it, but here the words such as burning forehead, parching tongue depict and showcase that the poet has entered into the discussion. He's not using I over here, but he's feeling it firsthand. And he feels detached with the faded scenarios and the stories that are being depicted on the urn itself. After approaching the world of the urn, therefore, he quickly drops away from it and is left to reflect on the significance of the experience. So, all in all, I've read from this text so that you can get an idea how to write about it. The rest, the simplified version of interpretation is the same that you have understood over here. Now, moving forward to the next stanza. Okay, please keep yourself muted so that the voice does not uh, echo. Noor, bete disable it. Tana, बर्तन धो रहे हो बेटे? See, this is very important that you have to be vigilant in the online class as well. Anyway, uh, now we have the next stanza, that is the fourth one. Who are these coming to the sacrifice? To what green altar? O mysterious priest, leadest thou that heifer luring the skies, and all her silken flanks with garlands dressed. What little town by river or seashore, or mountains built with peaceful citadel, is impetied of this folk, this pious mourn. And Lytton town, thy streets forevermore will silent be, and not a soul to tell why thou art desolate can ever return. Now, again, the questions which were asked in the beginning of the stanza, first, in the end of the first stanza, I mean to say, now those points are being answered. The mad, where he asks what mad pursuit. So he's asking, now the poem asks, who are these coming to the sacrifice? Now, the third scene is being depicted over here that they are moving towards the sacrificial altar, the green altar. Now, this green represents the nature, and it also tells us the urn probably had colors on it. So, color imagery and the vivid imagery that the poet could have, the poet might and must possess over here has been depicted over here. So, he's asking, the question is being answered over here that who are these people going for the altar in the place, and then they have a heifer, they have a cow, which they are taking to the sacrificial altar. And who's this mysterious priest? Usually in Greek mythology, these people who used to um, worship natural phenomena, they used to have a priest जो इन tribes को in sacrificial convoys को lead किया करता था. So that is what is being depicted over here. Now let's read from the Gale study. In the fourth stanza, the scene of the urn changes, perhaps implying that the speaker has moved to the other side of the vessel. The shift in subject matter suggests the poem's urn may, in fact, be composite of different artifacts the poet observed. If you remember in the beginning, I did tell you that it does not only talk about one perspective, there are multiple scenes and scenarios. They can be connected, you can take them as connected scenarios, and they can be taken separately as well. Poems urn may in fact be composite of different artifacts the poet observed. Freestyle urns of this type Keats seemed to describe generally depict only one scene running continuously around the एरिया द सरकमफ्रेंस यूजुअली इस तरह के जो अर्न थे वो ऑफ कोर्स राउंड शेप में है और वो एक ही स्टोरी डिपिक्ट करते थे बट इट इज अप टू द इंटरप्रेटर वेदर दे वांट टू टेक इट इन अ होल सिनेरियो कि वही लोग हैं जो सेक्रीफाइस पे भी जा रहे हैं जहाँ लव स्टोरी भी है और जहाँ पे नेचर भी डिपिक्ट हो रही है लेकिन इनको सेपरेटली भी लिया जा सकता है द न्यू सीन शोज अ प्रीस्ट लीडिंग अ heifer to the sacrifice at some green altar not portrayed. Having come to the end of his attempt to identify with the secular bucolic bliss of the lovers in the first three stanza, having been left, in fact, high sorrowful in the process, the speaker searches the urn for a different kind of immortality. Beyond the fleeting passions of life and the abstract perfection of art exists religion, which attempts to synthesize nature, symbol, and experience with a single overriding principle. Like they have mentioned in the third stanza that yes, these images and symbols and metaphors can be taken separately, but they are connected as well with the perspective of nature, beauty, art, religion, and community based understanding and practices as well. Yet the urn's religious significance offers no more comfort than its eternal lovers represented by a mysterious priest of a spiritual practice long dead, the urn's religion has itself become art. Now, this is the beauty of romantic poetry. Like we have talked about that in romanticism, the core values uh, of a romantic poet is to incorporate stories from the past. The entire story, the narrative that we are reading regarding narrative is from Greek mythology, which is illusion. It is also supernatural in nature, romantic poetry, and we can say that the religious perspective and practices being depicted on the urn They are supernatural in nature. Of course, they talk about the gods and the sacrifices, the mysterious priest. So again, how this poem becomes a romantic poem because it talks about illusions. There are references from the other works. The diction is simple. Supernatural elements are there, and the confusion between whether it is about the common people or about the gods, all these binaries, the questions, they surely depict that this poem is a romantic poem because the poet is not defining his perspective being attached to the gods only, right? Lacking the proper context to understand the meaning of the priest's sacrifice, the speaker feels as desolate as the town emptied of this folk. Thus, the predominant mood of the poem has become melancholic. It's a shift embodied by the emptiness and silence of the town. Now, everybody has gone to the sacrificial altar and they are going to perform the ritual, they are going to be part of it. So, there is seclusion and melancholic touch to the silent and empty town in the scene. This silence is really the silence of the universe when religion becomes an antique artifact. Now, this is again an important part that when the religion becomes a something of, artifact, not becomes or it's no longer a navigational point of our lives, then it becomes an artifact. And that is what the poet is trying to depict over here, where he's trying to say that people used to follow religious practices religiously, but now finally, because the urn is there and it is not moving, it is frozen in time, and religion, because poet in the third stanza is detaching himself from the urn and whatever it is depicting. Therefore, now he's of the view that the religion itself has become antique, just like the urn itself. Okay, now in the next stanza that we have the that is the final stanza of the poem. Yes, this is the final stanza. O Attic shape, fair attitude, with breed of marble, men and maidens overwrought. With forest branches and the trodden weed, thou silent from thou dost tease us out of thought, as doth eternity cold pastoral, when old age shall this generation waste, thou shalt remain in mid of the other room, than ours a friend to man, to whom thou sayest, beauty is truth, truth beauty, that is all. You know on earth and all you need to know. One thing that you must understand that these two lines are the most famous lines from Ode on a Grecian Urn. One is heard melodies are sweet, but those unheard are sweeter. And this one, beauty is truth and truth beauty. In the last stanza, uh, the poet is talking about the transient nature of life, and he's talking about that how old age and the moving nature or passing nature of nature, beauty, human life is important and how it is depicted in the eyes of the beholder. And it is the beauty of life. Moving forward, the transient nature of life is the importance of life, and that is what he's trying to say over here. By the final stanza, the urn has lost much of its vitality for the speaker. It is reverted from a bride, foster child, and historian to all human personification to its objective and identity that is an attic shape. आपको याद होगा that I told you in the beginning that urn used to be an item of utility, but then it became artifact, just like religion used to be a practice, but then it became something that is depicted on the artifact. और ये metaphors जो शुरुआत में थे foster child, historian, and bride. They were human personification. Now they have entered into another identification, another identity that is of an attic shape. कि वो एक shape में है, वो एक artifact है और वो एक silence में पड़े हुए हैं. The characters are transformed from living beings to artistic renderings. As such, they are overwrought, either by the artist who has portrayed them as larger than life, or by a speaker who has elevated them to a significance they cannot possess. This term recalls the first stanza, again, the connection with the previous stanza, where the characters were overwrought in a different way with desire and wild ecstasy. This duality is part of overall riddle the urn has become. Instead of granting meaning, it instead serves to tease us out of thought. Thought being what divides us from nature and eternity, what gives us the sense of our own mortality and dooms us to the world of weariness, fever, and fret. But the speaker suggests we can be teased only briefly, and even then, our deception is the product of our imagination rather than of a cold piece of poetry. When the deception is ended, we return to reality disillusioned. As the speaker of the Nightingale concludes, the fancy cannot cheat so well as she is famed to deceiving elf. It is the urn, or if the urn has become a riddle to the speaker, then final two lines are equally puzzling to the reader. The urn says to man, beauty is truth, truth beauty, which makes sense in terms of the urn's world. For the lovers and for the urn itself, beauty is the only meaningful and measurable existence. They cannot conceive as humans do, that is, that in life beauty is often deceptive and truth often ugly. But for the speaker, the first five lines of the stanza seems to confirm his understanding that beauty has its false side. Of course, for me, beauty is being very responsible, being very humble, and beauty could be something else to somebody else. So beauty fluctuates. But again, everything is beautiful if it is truthful, right? That is what he's trying to entail over here. The truths of life, the suffering of men, the atrocities of history certainly demonstrate that what we know to be real can occasionally be called beautiful. So, what do we make of the last line and a half? Some commentators insist that the world's words after the dash are part of Ern's message. The punctuation has been omitted, leading to easy misinterpretation. However, it seems unlikely that in a poem as controlled as Ode on a Grecian Urn, Keats would have left such a glaring flaw in such a crucial point. Other readers suggest that the last words are of the speakers and that he is addressing the reader. So the confusion that entered the in the poem in the third stanza, where the poet wanted to showcase his detachment from the scenes of an artifact or relic that was the urn and the life, यानी वो जो फील कर रहा था इन प्रेजेंस और जो डिपिक्टेड था ऑन अर्न, वो डिटैचमेंट थर्ड स्टेंजा से स्टार्ट हो जाती है. And in the end, in the final two verses, which is the couplet, which is the most complex ones, there are two interpretations and thoughts available. Some of the people think that the urn is addressing the whole questioning, the line of questions that were there in the first stanza, and then the rest of the people they believe it is the poet himself. Thus, the urn's message comprises all that people need to know on earth, and all they need to know is beauty is truth and truth beauty, and that is all. Yet this reading seems to contradict the entire rest of the poem. The speaker recognizes, after all, that he has only been teased into believing that the urn's beauty is truth, and that what passes for truth is the urn's rarefied world can hold also true in life. So again, the entire poem itself is a teaser of a sort. जहाँ शुरुआत के two stanza में we were told, we were definitely coming to a point that the beauty is imperishable, it has a permanence, it is permanent, and it is immortal. But By the passage of time, by the passage of experiences of the poetic persona and the person who is speaking in the poem, that is John Keats himself, definitely there is a detachment between the poetic persona and the artifacts and the stories attached to it. The most likely answer seems to lie in the ode's consistent use of apostrophe, its manner of directly addressing the urn, its characters, and its images. Je then must be the urn itself. Though originally plural, the pronoun had come to denote the singular you by Keats' time. So again, it is highly romantic because it is using the words, the diction being used is romantic, is from the romantic era. ये थोड़ा बहुत stylistically analysis भी हुआ हुआ है, but this stylistic analysis adds to the meaning making process. And though the urn has been addressed as thou previously in the poem, the use of word here would create an unnecessary awkwardness of sound. All thou needest know on earth, and all thou needs to know. Most importantly, if the speaker in the final lines is addressing the urn, then the ending retains a meaning consistent with the rest of the ode. For the urn and its characters, beauty is truth because they do not exist beyond the urn, unthinking state of nature. Not only is the urn on earth is made of earth, it is like the nightingale, a part of nature, but for humans, truth is not limited to beauty. It is not all we need to know because human consciousness, we do not exist solely on earth. We perceive the abstract and ideals raw from the urn and the speaker, and on and on. You see, this is how you're going to conclude the poem itself. If we talk about the themes, we have the theme of time, the permanence of time, and the healing power of the time, and how time must go on and it has the capacity to डेफिनेटली अब आप देख सकते हैं कि यहाँ पर टाइम थीम ऑफ टाइम का एक क्रिटिकल एनालिसिस लिखा हुआ है रीड इट at your own. Then, art and experience, how it is embedded in the poem, has been depicted over here. This is another theme. And the love. The theme of love is prevalent throughout the poem. You have to read. Why do you need to read the thematic analysis over here? So, when you sit down to do reference to the context, essay type question, you can add these things. Style, we have talked about it already. आप ये style के बारे में और भी पढ़ सकते हैं. And then we have historical context. Now let's read the historical context quickly so that you know कि romanticism से ये किस तरह से attached है in clear words. Although I've been telling you in the poem as well, but this helps you reinforce your ideas that you have made according to it with your existing knowledge. John Keats is recognized by all as a central figure of romantic literary movement, and his poem called Ode on a Grecian Urn is consisted or considered one of the greatest works that he has produced in romantic age. This brings up one of the biggest problems modern readers have in discussing the romantic age. We cannot avoid talking about it and using term to put historical literary figures in context with each other, especially not when we are discussing works of the late 18th and early 19th century. But the traits that we use to recognize romanticism can appear and then disappear within any author's collected works. Even within any given poem, there have been qualities of romanticism existent since poetry was first written, and there are poets today whom we would call mainly romantic due to their view of the world. The period that we consider the age of romanticism was the time in history when most of the significant artists created works displaying these traits. If there could be a uh, starting date put on this idea, it would have been between 1798 to 1780, when Lyrical Ballads, a volume of poetry by Wordsworth and Coleridge, was published. These poems solidified a way of thought that had already existed in the atmosphere. It placed a high value on and nature, the spirituality and nature. The works in this volume, the majority of them being Wordsworth, made the artist the main focus of the poem. Remember, it's all about how the poet perceived the world and felt about it's about their experiences. Therefore, these are romantic poems. They also showcase a renewed interest in human individualistic thought process or individualism after poets of enlightenment of 1700s had instead valued abstract esoteric ideas and as reasons in ancient history. Historically, we can see that ascent of individual rising as an international concern in the American Revolution or French Revolution, etc., which both promoted the idea of democracy and respect for people, regardless of their socio cultural, economical positions. So, why these poems are important and how they can be called social reforms or political and economical reforms because they incorporate the agendas and the teachings of these revolutions American and French revolutions भी यही कहते थे कि लोगों को एक democracy के तहत they should be given rights and that is depicted symbolically and with the images in the poem as well. The French Revolution led to anarchy, which might have made the general public around the world think twice about supporting the romantic ideal of liberty, except that anarchy led to the rise of Napoleon Bonaparte in 1799. So, yeah, revolution was one of the causes that made people think individually कि उन्हें अपने लिए खुद decisions लेने हैं. Napoleon named himself emperor and started expanding his empire in the early etcs, which gave defenders of liberty an enemy to unite against. The fact that the Napoleonic Wars altered the balance of power between the three superpowers of the time, France, England, and Russia, and disrupted lives across Europe. Also helped the revolution and ideas proceed, since new ideas always flourished in times of turmoil. In Romanticism and democracy, were promoting ideals of freedom throughout the Western cultures, Keats wrote Ode on Aggression. Romanticism is a movement that we generally associate with literature, although traces of it exist in all arts to some degree in all manners of thought. The romantic frame of mind is chiefly emotional and not intellectual. In this poem, for instance, the interest in the urn is not expressed in an intellectual way, such as trying to determine its date or history, but the speaker is trying and writing about his direct experience concerning the vast. Concerns of romantics include the love, of course, since it is one of those most personal emotions the individual can have. The nature, since it is nature that individual actually experience in the world. The abstract idea of God is not the direct focus of most romantic works, but it is related to what nature tells us about the spirit that runs throughout the things. One more theme that occurs often in romanticism is the retelling of ancient tales. Like मैं आपको शुरुआत से बताती जा रही हूँ कि बाकी कामों को पढ़ने के बाद allusions और दूसरी references को incorporate किया जाता है. So retelling is another important perspective of romantic poems. Of ancient tales such as Sir Walter Scott's Ivanhoe, which is presented through a mix of heroism and emotion, or Alfred Tennyson's The Lady of Shalott, which is etc. etc. और words का यहाँ पर reference दिया हुआ है. Now you can definitely read the rest at your own. So themes आपने देख ली, कहानी इसकी हमें थोड़ी बहुत समझ आ गई. It's not that simple. Remember, Keats is not that simple, right? It does have many points that you must, you know, try and compare and contrast with other. फिर critical analysis भी दिया हुआ है, उसको भी आप पढ़ लीजिएगा. And that is all for this poem. Now, if you have bit any questions, go ahead and ask. कोई सवाल है तो बताएं. बेटे कौन बोल रहा है? लेट मी सी. पहले मैं आपको ना डिसेबल करती हूँ. मलीहा, ते क्लास में इंटरेस्ट लो ना, किससे बातें कर रहे हो? एनीवे, जी बेटे कोई क्वेश्चन हो तो बताएं.
मैम
जी जी।
ये जो कल के असाइनमेंट है ना, इसके बारे में ये पूछना था कि ये हमने हैंड रिटन फॉर्म में अपलोड करना है या फिर टाइप के फॉर्म में अपलोड करना है?
बेटे टाइप करना है। मेरे कोर्स के लिए कुछ भी हैंड रिटन नहीं करना अनटिल अनलेस हम वो ऑन कैंपस कर रहे हो, ठीक है बेटे?
ओके मैम, थैंक यू।
ये पोएम समझ आ गई है? एक और पोएम पढ़ेंगे या नहीं?
मैम
जी जी बताओ।
मैम इसमें टाइम को किस तरह से मतलब हाईलाइट किया गया है?
टाइम को इसी तरह से हाईलाइट किया गया ना कि विद द पैसेज ऑफ टाइम। लैला आपका क्वेश्चन हम लेते हैं, गिव मी अ मिनट फर्स्ट। टाइम को इसी तरह से हाईलाइट किया गया ना बेटे कि देखो, शुरू में जो अर्न है वो ऑलरेडी टाइम का विक्टिम है, राइट? वो बर्डनाइज्ड है स्लो टाइम और साइलेंस का, एजेस का, सिविलाइजेशंस का। टाइम चल रहा है। सेकंड स्टेंजा में हमें पता चलता है कि पूरी कहानी आगे जा रही है, और थर्ड स्टेंजा में जाके विद द पैसेज ऑफ टाइम जितनी वो कहानी पढ़ता जाता है, पोएटिक पर्सोना पूरी कहानी पूरे अर्न को वो घुमा कर देखता है, सारी कहानी उसे समझ आती जाती है। तो वो देखता है कि कुछ भी परमानेंट नहीं है। या तो ये सारी स्टोरी एक ही बात कर रही है, या ये स्टोरी में डिफरेंसेस हैं, या ये तीन डिफरेंट सीन्स हैं। तो विद द पैसेज ऑफ टाइम लोग ऑल्टर पे जा रहे हैं, अपनी जगहों को खाली छोड़कर जा रहे हैं, लोग इस तरह की म्यूजिक बजा रहे हैं, लोग डांस कर रहे हैं, सब कुछ हो रहा है। लेकिन आर्ट जो है रिलीजन की तरह कहीं पर स्टक हो जाता है। देयरफॉर इसमें एक ट्रांजिएंट नेचर नहीं है, यानी टाइम इसको हील नहीं कर सकता, टाइम इसको प्रोग्रेस नहीं करवा सकता। दैट इज व्हाई द थीम ऑफ टाइम इज प्रेवलेंट ओवर हियर। अभी मैंने आपको जो रीडिंग मैंने दिखाई उसमें भी लिखा होगा, आप वहां से भी पढ़ सकते हैं। जी लैला, अब बताएं क्या क्वेश्चन
Ma'am, it's about the concluding lines of the poem.
है?
Truth is beauty is truth and truth beauty. Ma'am, if we have two situations, one is the urn is answering the questions, and the other is poet himself is saying this line. So even in both situations, these two things are very different. For example, beauty is something subjective, and for someone one thing is beautiful, and for the other it's not. And truth is objective and it's factful, and everybody has to agree on it, even if others agree or not.
हम्म
So, what's poet's take on it when he's writing these lines? Does he, contrast beauty and truth, or make this it a one thing? We have other philosophers, for example, Plato and Aristotle, and others theory on beauty and truth as well, and they find it very different things. And one is factful, and the other is subjective. So, what's poet's take on this? I'm not able to clearly understand this.
यस, द लास्ट टू लाइंस, लाइक जब मैं यहाँ से आपके लिए इंटरप्रिटेशन भी पढ़ रही थी, इट इज क्वाइट डिफिकल्ट टू अंडरस्टैंड बिकॉज देर आर टू पर्सपेक्टिव्स अटैच टू इट। आइदर दीज टू लाइंस आर टोटली सेपरेटेड और हम इसको अलग से समझ लें। सेकेंडली, जैसे शुरुआत में भी मैंने आपसे कहा था दैट वी हैव टू कंफाइंड आवरसेल्व्स to the pointers that we can find within the poem. To make it simple, जो यहाँ लिखा है आप ऐसे भी लिख सकते हैं, लेकिन अगर एग्जाम में इससे रिलेटेड कुछ आता है, so what you should do, you should, of course हमें जॉन कीट्स ने खुद तो नहीं बताया ना कि वो क्या सोच के कहना चाह रहा था, हम इसे इंटरप्रेट ही कर सकते हैं। द फैक्ट कि यहाँ पर तीन जो आपको डैश यानी लॉन्ग डैश नजर आ रही है, इससे हमें दो किस्म के पर्सपेक्टिव पता चलने की पता चल रहा है। द वन इज दैट मे बी द अर्न इज आंसरिंग, बिकॉज शुरुआत में हमारा सारा कंसर्न अर्न पे डिपिक्टेड कहानी पर है। फिर देन इन द थर्ड स्टैंजा इन द मिडल पोएटिक पर्सोना भी एंट्री ले लेता है ना। दैट्स व्हाई देयर इज अ कंफ्यूजन कि वेदर दिस इज व्हाट द अर्न इज सेइंग or this is what the poetic persona feels. So both are correct, दोनों incorrect नहीं है। ठीक है, आप दोनों को लिख सकते हैं। what I can offer is, मैं आपको अपनी पर्सनल अंडरस्टैंडिंग यहाँ पे थोड़ी सी बताना चाहूंगी कि अगर मैं इसे अटेम्प्ट करती हूँ तो मैं इस तरह से लिखती कि I would have said that the poet wants to highlight that artifacts are there, beauty is attached to it, nature depiction is there, relationships and transient nature of life and death, and the circle is definitely depicted, and that is the beauty of life. Permanence And the everlasting quality of urn is not the beauty of life. The beauty of life and the truth is the transient nature of life experiences, the transient nature of time passing on, the transient nature of things moving forward. That is the beauty. And it is up to the person, it is up to the eyes of the beholder, whatever they want to understand. But what the poet wants to conclude by his understanding of the entire scenario, that beauty is truth. ब्यूटी कुछ भी हो सकती है. आपके लिए परमानेंस ऑफ आर्ट है आपके लिए ब्यूटी, या आपके लिए ब्यूटी वो है कि जो आप लिविंग एक्सपीरियंसेस में एक्सपीरियंस करते हैं. लेकिन ब्यूटी ही सच्चाई है और सच्चाई ही ब्यूटी है. दैट इज ऑल. तो आप ये दोनों पर्सपेक्टिव लिख सकते हैं. आप लव को भी ब्यूटी कह सकते हैं कि लव इज ट्रूथ एंड ट्रूथ इज इक्वल टू लव. लव इज एवरीथिंग. और लव कैसे बनेगा, लव कैसे प्रोग्रेस करेगा जब आप जी रहे हैं, व्हेन यू आर लिविंग दीज थिंग्स, जब आपके एक्सपीरियंसेस हैं. अब देखिए, आई कैन बी इन लव विद द आइडिया ऑफ लव, बट लविंग समथिंग रिक्वायर्स समथिंग एल्स. देखिए, अगर मुझे एक शख्स पसंद है, ठीक है, और मैं कहती हूँ आई एम इन लव विद दिस पर्सन, ठीक है, दैट इज बीइंग इन लव विद द आइडिया ऑफ लव. Loving somebody is living with them, being responsible, and living in the concept of give and take. That is the truth of life. So अगर जिंदगी चलती रहेगी तो ही वो ब्यूटीफुल है और वही ट्रुथ है. और अगर आपने परमानेंस ऑफ आर्ट के बारे में बात करना है तो आप उस पर्सपेक्टिव से भी बात कर सकते. ठीक है लैला, does it answer or maybe 60 to 70% answer your question?
Yes, ma'am, it does. Thank you so much.
Okay, any other questions बेटे? Anybody else? No? ठीक हो गया. चले, मैं आपसे एक और चीज आपको दिखाना चाहती हूँ, उसके बाद यू आर गुड टू गो. गिव मी अ मिनट प्लीज. लेट मी सी इफ आई कैन फाइंड इट. अच्छा, आपको बेटे कोर्स हीरो के बारे में पता है? कोर्स हीरो एक बहुत ऑथेंटिकेटेड किस्म की वेबसाइट है, और यूट्यूब पे भी ये होते हैं, एंड दे आर वेरी गुड विद एक्सप्लेनिंग मोस्ट ऑफ द वर्क्स दैट आर इंक्लूडेड इन योर कोर्स. तो मैं आपके लिए एक 2 मिनट्स की वीडियो प्ले करूंगी फ्रॉम कोर्स हीरो. ये लिंक भी आपके ग्रुप में शेयर कर दिया जाएगा, ये अभी आपके चैट में भी कर देती हूँ. इसमें वो ऑफ कोर्स सिर्फ इसकी बात नहीं करेगा, जो पोएम हम इस वक्त डिस्कस कर रहे हैं वो जेनेरिकली बात करेगा, ठीक है, लेकिन इट डज हेल्प अंडरस्टैंडिंग जॉन कीट्स. इसी तरह से फिर 3-4 और वीडियोस हैं जिसमें वो थेमेटिकली उन्हें डिस्कस करता है. एक डॉक्यूमेंट भी मैं आपको दिखाना चाहती हूँ जो कि इन्हीं बनाया होगा. यस, उसमें वो एक पोएम पे फोकस नहीं करते, लेकिन थेमेटिकली सारी ओड्स पे बात करते हैं. ओरिजिनली जो आपका कोर्स है ना बेटे, इसमें ये सारी ओड्स थी और होनी चाहिए, तभी ये डेफिनेटली समझ आती हैं. मैं आपको दिखाती हूँ, ये देखिए, ये भी मैं अपलोड कर देती हूँ, अगर आपको इंटरेस्ट हो तो जरूर पढ़िएगा. देखिए, 6 ओड्स बाय जॉन कीट्स. इसमें कॉन्टेक्स्ट मिलेगा आपको, ठीक है, इसमें बुक्स की बेसिक्स मिल जाएंगी. ये उन्होंने बुकलेट्स ही बना रखी होती है, और मेजर कोटेशंस कौन से हैं, सिंबल्स, थीम्स, प्लॉट समरीज. अब आप कह रहे होंगे कि पोएम में प्लॉट क्या कर रहा है. प्लॉट्स होते हैं, कॉम्प्लेक्स होते हैं, दिमाग में दर्द करने वाले होते हैं, बट दे आर डेफिनेटली देयर, एंड पोएम समरीज आर देयर. ठीक है. सो रोमांटिसिज्म एंड रोमांटिक पोएट्री का एक जेनेरिक इंट्रोडक्शन दिया गया है. ठीक है. हिस्ट्री ऑफ द ओड एज ए फॉर्म दिया गया है. रेफरेंसेस ऑफ ग्रीक मिथोलॉजी जो हम बार बार बात कर रहे हैं. अब हमने जब बात की है ओड ऑन अ ग्रेशियन की बात की है ना, तो उसमें देखिए allusions हैं जिसमें एंशिएंट ग्रीस एंड देयर सैक्रिफाइसेस टू द गॉड्स की बात की गई है. तो इस तरह से बड़ा जेनेरिकली बहुत अच्छा एक डॉक्यूमेंट है, ये आप इसको देख सकते हैं. उसके बाद ऑथर्स की बायोग्राफी है, राइटिंग एंड पब्लिशिंग है, लव एंड ट्यूबरकुलोसिस है, ये पोएट के बारे में. फिर करेक्टर्स आ जाते हैं. हमने साइकी अभी नाइटिंगेल के बारे में बात नहीं की, हमने सिर्फ ओड टू द ग्रेशियन अर्न की बात की है. इन ओड टू द ग्रेशियन अर्न द स्पीकर एड्रेसेस एन एंशिएंट ग्रीक. अब ये जो ग्रेशियन अर्न इटसेल्फ है ना, ये करेक्टर है ना, क्योंकि हम इस पे पूरी पोएम लिख रहे हैं। तो इस तरह से यहाँ पर ये बात हो रही है। फिर समरीज दी गई हैं और छोटा सा एक एनालिसिस दिया गया है। तो बेटे ओड ऑन अ ग्रेशियन अर्न की समरी आप यहाँ से पढ़ लोगे और एनालिसिस भी पढ़ लोगे। ये थोड़ा सा आसान लिखा होगा। और फिर अच्छे कोट्स कोट्स इन द सेंस कि टेक्सचुअल एनालिसिस के लिए जो अच्छी चीज़ें यहाँ पर हमें मिल सकती हैं, जो आपको पता होना चाहिए। जैसे मैंने आपको पहले भी शायद बताया हो, ओड ऑन अ ग्रेशियन अर्न में हर्ड मेलोडीज आर स्वीट एंड अनहर्ड आर स्वीटर इज द मोस्ट फेमस वन। तो देखिए वो यहाँ पे भी कोटेड है। फिर यहाँ पर सिंबल्स की बात हो रही है कि ग्रेशियन अर्न में सिंबल्स जो हैं नेचर कैसे बता रहे हैं, आइडियल वर्सेस रियलिटी क्या है, प्लेजर वर्सेस पेन क्या है, मोर्टेलिटी वर्सेस इमॉर्टेलिटी क्या है। ये बहुत कॉम्पैक्ट, बहुत अच्छा एक हैंड आउट है। ये मैं आपका पोस्ट कर देती हूँ। नाउ लेट्स वॉच दिस वीडियो दैट आई वांट टू शो टू यू। लेट मी सी। ओके, लेट मी अटैच द वीडियो दैट आई एम रेफरिंग टू। ओके,
In Ode on a Grecian Urn in 6 Odes of John Keats, the speaker addresses the Grecian urn, describing it as a bride of quietness and a child of silence and time. Even though the urn is an inanimate object, he also sees it as a kind of historian that has witnessed both gods and mortals in its lifetime. The speaker asks the urn questions and addresses elements of the urn's design, including the urn's fair youth who can't ever leave, and the painted tree branches that won't go bare. As he spies a bold lover seeking a kiss, he notes the act cannot be completed. Though his generation will grow old and die, the urn will remain in midst of other woe than ours for generations to come. He imagines the urn observing that beauty and truth are the same thing, and that is all ye know on earth, and all ye need to know. This is one of Keats's most famous poems. He examines the object first in its entirety and then attends to the specific scenes depicted on it. As Keats again visits the theme of immortality versus mortality, the speaker's initial admiring of the object gives way to a meditation on its immortality. The images on the urn, frozen in time, have far outlasted their creator and will outlast the speaker's lifetime too. Each new generation will appreciate the urn's beauty and mystery. Art and stories can provide a sort of immortality to the individuals who create them. Yet even though the images on the urn will live on, the speaker points out they are stuck in the moment. Wistfulness seems to engulf the speaker upon realizing the urn's immortality means its figures will never experience future joy, strife, or suffering. Beauty is truth. Truth, beauty. This simple concept is not only all the humans know, but it is all they need to know. Keats alters the poem from merely an observation by the speaker to a possible dialogue between the speaker and the urn. Although the urn holds its silence through the speaker's early interrogation, here it seems to convey an answer that's larger than the question he has raised. Another literary device Keats employs is ekphrasis, a Greek word meaning description. Ekphrasis is a poet's graphic description of a painting, sculpture, or other visual art. By verbally depicting the work of art, the poet captures its essence in words and expands its meaning.
so you see how beautifully, I forgot the professor's name. I usually really enjoy listening to him. The way he speaks is amazing. मुझे बहुत पसंद है, आपका पता नहीं। तो कितने beautifully in few lines he has concluded that how ode on aggression and यही discussion हमने की है ना, कोई हद के बात तो नहीं की, लेकिन हमने ज्यादा थोड़ी डिटेल में की है। I hope this helps. Yes?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Any other questions अगर हो तो बताएं।
Ma'am.
जी बताएं।
मैम हम ये कह सकते हैं कि टाइम हमें एक तरह से रियलाइजेशन दिला रहा है कि किस तरह से लॉज ऑफ इंडस्ट्रियलाइजेशन कल्चर इकोनॉमिक हुई है लोगों की जब माइग्रेशन, क्योंकि जब हम उस अर्न को एनालाइज करते हैं उसके ऊपर तरह से हम ना सोचते होते हैं तो हमें ये भी चीज़ें पता चलती है इराज के मुतालिक, इवेंट्स के मुतालिक।
ऐसा ही है, ऐसा ही है। That's true. ओके, ओके। एक जो और पोएम कीट्स की आपकी कोर्स आउटलाइन में है, उसका इंट्रोडक्शन देख लेते हैं। लेट मी सी। You have ode on melancholy. Yes, melancholy is also there. तो इसी प्रोफेसर से melancholy का इंट्रोडक्शन सुन लेते हैं। Let's listen.
In Ode on Melancholy and Six Odes of John Keats, the speaker implores readers not to go to Lethe, the river of forgetfulness in Greek mythology. Readers shouldn't take any substance to forget, nor should they consider suicide. He mentions they shouldn't let the beetle or death moth or owl become their mournful psyche. That is, images of death and decay shouldn't corrupt their souls. When confronted with the melancholy fit of sadness, readers should find comfort in a morning rose, a rainbow, or a bouquet of peonies. If a lover is angry, readers should take her hand, let her rant, and gaze into her eyes. The speaker points out that even though she's beautiful, that beauty will fade, just as love can fade. In the very temple of delight, melancholy has its own shrine that can be visited only by those who understand that pain and sadness are often linked with pleasure and delight. Keats investigates the themes of pleasure versus pain and the ideal versus reality. Initially, the speaker offers a prescription for experiencing sadness, which should be truly felt and embraced, rather than avoided, dulled, or snuffed out by suicide. Many things can bring one joy, particularly nature and beauty, but anything beautiful or joyful is also fleeting. Also, Keats is careful not to attach melancholy to any particular event, but indicates sadness is more like a fit that can fall on anyone at any time. Ultimately, though, the speaker believes it's better to be alive and experience the reality of pain than to seek a false ideal by dulling one's feelings. Although most of Keats's other odes are addressed to a specific person, creature, or object, it's significant that Ode on Melancholy is addressed to readers. Also setting Ode on Melancholy apart from Keats's other odes is that it offers direct instruction rather than mere reflection and contemplation. The speaker in the other odes is often passive, content to gaze upon a subject, then reflect on it. Here, the speaker addresses readers directly with advice on something more ephemeral than an urn or goddess. He addresses a feeling. Keats organizes Ode on Melancholy within 3 stanzas, and the third delves further into why it's important to experience both pleasure and pain. They are inextricably bound.
Now you have introduction of ode on melancholy, right? And we'll talk about it further on campus. इसका भी usually Gale study हर poem की मिल ही जाती है, तो I'll be posting that as well. Please bring that in the downloaded form so that we can move forward. ठीक है बेटे, if there are no questions, we will be concluding the class. It has been recorded, so I'll be posting the recording as well. If there were students who were not able to join in for any reasons, please सुन लीजिएगा और सुन कर आइएगा। मैं आपसे क्लास में कुछ भी पूछ सकती हूँ, ठीक है? अच्छा, आरजू कह रही हैं ठीक है बेटा, अटेंडेंस सबकी लग जाएगी। आप देख लें, आप सबके मैंने नोट कर लिया है, यहाँ से अटेंडेंस भी डाउनलोड हो चुकी है। तो इन द एंड यानी सेमेस्टर एंड होते ही अगर आपको 1-2 क्लासों की ज़रूरत पड़ती है, तो इसमें जो आपकी मिस होगी, मैं इसके ऊपर लिख लूँगी, नोट कर लूँगी कि ये ऑनलाइन क्लास है, तो मैं आपका अटेंडेंस लगा दूँगी, यू डोंट हैव टू वरी।
Okay, ma'am.
ओके
Thank you.
जी, दैट्स ऑल फॉर टुडे। थैंक यू बेटे, अल्लाह हाफ़िज़। हैप्पी वीकेंड, ऑल्दो मैंने आपके वीकेंड में थोड़ा-सा टाइम ले लिया है। मैंने क्या लिया है ये इसे क्या कहते हैं, पब्लिक हॉलिडेज़ ने लिया है। अल्लाह हाफ़िज़ बेटे, टेक केयर।